Yahoo Fantasy Football, the Tucson Tackle Dummies League, has completed Week 7 in the NFL season, the halfway point in the fantasy football season. We're going to go straight to the games here. I'm going to try to be quick. With the Burger King Game of the Week, Greek Thunderball knocks off Sixburg 117.65 to 107.16. For Greek Thunder, 7th in the standings following the victory, 1 game out of the lead in the Toro division. Sixburg, with the loss, remains 2nd overall, just 2 games, now with a 2-game lead in the Aztec division. Greek, 7 players beat projections on their roster, including, even though they started Reggie Wayne on a bye and had 2 individual defensive players on a bye as well, Greek was still able to pull out the victory. Both teams had pretty sloppy rosters, but Greek was able to make the best of the situation. Greek had a team high from Aaron Rodgers at quarterback with a 19.2, and then had huge games from Thomas Jones with 18.5 and Ryan Lindell with 12 points at kicker. Greek had 2 tight end set once again this week and had continued success with 20.05 points, most of those this week coming at tight end from Vernon Davis with 14.4. For Sixburg, the team high was on the bench this week. He did not start Kenny Britt, who scored 43.25 points at wide receiver and was not eligible to earn points for Berg this week. He did not set the lineup and lost out on all those points. So the actual high score for Berg amongst players actually playing was Hakeem Nicks, who had a huge day with 27.05 points. Sixburg had 6 players beat projections. Defense in this battle was an ugly battle. Greek won that one 23.15 to 22.06. Both teams had players that scored no points in defensive slots. 18 of Greek's points on the defensive side came from the Chicago Bears defense alone. In other action, AZ Chargers knocked off My Dirty Boys 91.0 to 77.31. For Chargers, 8th in the overall standings now at 4-3. 3-1 against the Aztec division, so an impressive turnaround after a struggle through their own division to start the season. Dirty Boys is now dead last in the league, 1-6, the worst team overall, the lowest scoring team by 20 points. Chargers left 2 players on a bye in the lineup, and it didn't matter. They left a kicker on a bye and Dwight Freeney on a bye, and they were able to pick up the victory anyway. Just 4 players beat projections for Chargers in the win. Chad Ochocinco was the highest scoring player for him this week with a high of 19.3 at wide receiver. For Dirty Boys, a sloppy lineup once again is the reason why Dirty Boys loses here. Sat high scorer Darren McFadden. This guy had probably the greatest fantasy sports day you're ever going to see. McFadden scored 44.1 points and was not in the lineup for Dirty Boys, which is really sad because he had a running back that was on a bye in the lineup, and McFadden would have been an easy fill-in there. The high score for Dirty Boys was Rob Baronis at kicker. Sean Green was on a bye. 4 individual defensive players scored 0, and just 4 players beat projections for Dirty Boys this week. Defense was ugly in this battle as well. Chargers won it 24.5 to 14. Chargers had 13 of those 24.5 points from the Green Bay defense. Dirty had 13 points from the San Francisco defense and just 1 point from the remaining 5 slots. In other action, Delicious Pancakes knocked off Herbie TG 134.4 to 96.8. Pancakes leads the Wildcat division via tiebreaker and is number 2 in the league in scoring following the victory. For Herbie, the most scored on team in the league at this point, sitting at 2-5 overall and 1-3 versus the Wildcat division. Pancakes had no LaDainian Tomlinson, no New York Jets defense, and no Bernard Pollard, all 3 on byes this week. Pancakes, though, had 7 players beat projections and 6 in double digits. 30.75 points at running back from Maurice Jones-Drew and Beanie Wells, who finally got off the schneid. Pancakes sat Steve Johnson at wide receiver and missed out on 23.8 points because he instead chose to start Donald Driver, who scored no points playing for Green Bay this week. Pancakes, though, had 26 points from free agent fill-in the Washington defense. Wound up being the team high score there this week. The Washington defense had a huge day thanks to D'Angelo Hall's performance individually, and it wound up being Pancakes' best return as a fill-in for the New York Jets while they were on bye. The rest of the defense, though, scored just 21.5 points total. Herbie had just 3 players beat projections total. Did have success at wide receiver with 23.09 points from Johnny Knox and Devin Hester, and a team-high 20.85 from Hines Ward, but did start an injured kicker and then had just 12.35 points at running back, including a miserable 7.8 from Chris Johnson, who was projected to go over 20. Bucknuts returns the victory, knocking off Polack's 141.79 to 103.65. Bucknuts is now ninth, the best team that would miss the playoffs at this point, ending a 3-game slide and is now 4-3 overall and is finally under new management and new control completely. Polack's with the loss is 3-4, 2 games back in the Aztec division and 12th overall. Bucknuts did not have Peyton Manning, Arian Foster, or Santonio Holmes, all 3 on byes this week, and still picked up the victory. Buck also lost Dallas Clark at tight end for the season and was unable to put a tight end in the lineup in time, but it wound up not mattering. 7 players in double digits for Bucknuts. 7 players beat projections, and the team high, Dez Bryant at wide receiver with 26.76 points at the wide receiver spot. Also a huge day for Bucknuts from Ray Lewis, 20 points at linebacker this week. Polack's wound up losing here because of a messy lineup, as it seems to be the story for every team in the Aztec division. Polack's started a bunch of players that were ineligible or not scoring points. Pierre Thomas has been injured for weeks and was still in the lineup, and then 2 players were on a bye and still in the lineup, but did have success though at wide receiver. 2 wide receivers combined for 40.55 points, a team high 20.85 out of Dwayne Bowe. In another game this week, we had Is This the CFL defeating Shots 133.39 to 91.92. CFL ended a 3-game slide with the victory and is now 1 game out of the lead in the Wildcat division. Shots 2-2 after an 0-3 start, but still 13th overall after being one of the top teams in fantasy history last year. CFL had team high score from Adrian Peterson with 23.7 points, and 6 players beat projections. A huge day at tight end out of Todd Heap, who was actually questionable going into the game. He wound up playing. He was projected to score just 2.75 points and instead returned 18.65. So a big day there. Shots did counter with a great performance at tight end with Jason Witten scoring 17.75 points. 5 players beat projection for Shots, with CFL picking up 6 players beating projections. 3 scores for Shots were zeros. Pierre Thomas left the, not Pierre Thomas, but Javed Bess was on a bye this week, and he was in the lineup, and then also defensive lineman scored 0 points there. The defense was really bad for Shots, just 27 points this week. CFL scored 27 points alone from A.J. Hawk and the Kansas City defense combined. Jam Toe knocked off Inglorious Bear Jew 175.54 to 110.66. This was a competitive matchup, but Toe ran up the score late on Sunday to really bury Bear Jew in this one. Toe is first overall in the league, the high score of the week, and a 3-week winning streak now, and is the first team to go over 1,000 points on the season. Bear Jew with the loss is now 10th. A game out of first, though, in the Wildcat division, a very competitive division that Bear Jew is still very much in the thick of. Toe with 8 players beating projections, 6 players in double digits, and 2 players went over 30 points this week. 34.85 points out of Roddy White at wide receiver, and then D'Angelo Hall became Jay Cutler's favorite receiver, playing defense against him. He wound up catching 4 passes from Cutler and ran 1 back to the house for a pick 6. Total points there, 31 out of D'Angelo Hall. A huge day. Chip in 9 points from the other defensive back, and you got 40 points at the DB slot, which is huge. Roddy White pushed the 3 wide receivers to a total of 53.2 points for Jamto, despite the fact that Roy Williams at wide receiver scored none. Jamto's 3 New York Giants in the lineup also found success. They actually scored 33.4 points total. And then Toe's defense, with the performance from D'Angelo Hall, scored 74.5 points this week. Bear Jew, 5 players beat projections, 4 players were in double digits. A very disappointing week for Brandon Lloyd, Ray Rice, and the New Orleans defense. The New Orleans defense scored just 2 points playing against the lowly Cleveland Browns, with Colt McCoy making just his 2nd start ever. And then they were 10 points under projections because of that. Same deal with Ray Rice. He was really not anywhere to be seen for the Baltimore Ravens this week. Bear Jew, 18.18 from Ben Roethlisberger. That was the high score for the team this week. 5 players beat projections, 4 players in double digits. The high on defense was just 6 points from both TJ Ward and Calais Campbell. The defensive battle wound up being 74.5 to just 29, so that pretty much tells you the story there. Also in action in the Big Ben's Revenge knocked off DM2 Carpe, 159.18 to 86.54. Big Ben tied for the division lead in the Wildcat division, 5th overall at 4-3, and is the number 3 scorer in the league. Carpe is 4-3 and 6th overall, 2 games back in the Caballero division. Big Ben had 9 players beat projections this week and 7 players in double digits. 46.95 points from 3 running backs, including 26.9 from Michael Turner, the team high. Falcons found success for Big Ben this week. Michael Turner, Matt Ryan, and Curtis Lofton all in double digits from the Atlanta Falcons this week. Carpe was missing Andre Johnson, Matt Schaub, and Braylon Edwards and found it really hard to overcome that. Had a team-high 16.7 out of Anquan Bolden, but only 3 players beat projections and only 3 players were in double digits. The Denver defense was a big letdown. They allowed Oakland to score 59 points on them and wound up returning just negative 2 points for Carpe. 14.55 was the total from 3 running backs that Carpe put out there. Chris Ivory, Danny Woodhead, and C.J. Spiller combined for less than 15 points from all 3 of them. And in the biggest blowout of the week, the Payne Trains continues their winning ways, knocking 36.84. Payne is now 5-2, leading the Toro division after going 4-0 against the Aztec division, winning 4 straight.
Now, Diabetes 2-5, 15th overall. Lowest score of the season, lowest score in team history, and 4th lowest score by a team that wasn't forfeiting all time in all 3 years of this league. Payne had a team-high 25.14 from Eli Manning. 5 players beat projections, 4 in double digits. Kind of a mediocre performance, but got it done against one of the worst teams in the league, so definitely got over 100 points anyway. Noshawn Moreno had 21.75 at running back for Payne. The 3 running backs combined for 41.55 points this week. Payne sat Lee Evans. Lee Evans had 32 points on the bench. And then the 2 players that did play at wide receiver for Payne managed to combine for just 11.15. That was Larry Fitzgerald and Jabbar Gaffney. Both players were projected to score a lot higher than they did. For Diabetes, 1 player managed to beat projections. That was Chris Long at defensive lineman. 6 players returned points of 0. And the high on the team was Jay Cutler's miserable day with just 9.24 points. 3 wide receivers did not score any points at all, so no points at wide receiver. The Pittsburgh defense was very disappointing, just 3 points for Diabetes. The lone player, as we mentioned, beating projections was Chris Long at 5.5 points. Diabetes had just 13 points on defense. Payne had 11.5 from Gerard Mayo alone. Diabetes was projected to score 61.01 points and fell way short of that this week. So we'll look ahead to Week 8 action. Looking ahead, Jam Toe and the Payne Trains. A battle of 1 versus 3 is going to highlight the week's games next week. And then we also have a couple other big games. Sixburg is going to take on Big Ben's Revenge. And Carpe to Diem is going to take on Greek Thunder. Also, you have Pancakes taking on Polax. Chargers is going to face off with Shots. Bucknuts will take on Herbie. Inglorious Bear Juice is going to take on Diabetes. And Is This the CFL will face off with My Dirty Boys. So we'll hope to see you back next week for Week 8 action in the Tucson Tackle Dummies League.